All trading videos by OFA are for educational purposes only to illustrate sample use cases of the software functionality. OFA is not a trading system or strategy being marketed on a performance track record of live or hypothetical results. Trading involves substantial risk. Please do not purchase or subscribe to OFA services without carefully reading the complete required disclaimers and terms and conditions located on the OFA website. Okay, we are a tick off here. See if we can get this filled at 09. Okay, and our stop goes right behind the volume weighted average price. This is the big transition here. This is 9 o'clock transitioning. And the reason I like this play is because our target is just down in front of the low of the range, right? So we're only risking 6 ticks here trying to get a target inside the range. I mean, that's pretty ideal. And then from there, we have great opportunity down below. So if we can get the first piece of this picked up and the range actually breaks, and I mean, that's a big if. We don't know that the range is going to break, but it is. We're pushing into 915. We're about due, right? But we know that we've got some great levels from down below that we can look to try and pick up for a target. So if I come down and play into like this 66 down here after this transition, then I can use the other low of the range, and I'm looking at a pretty damn good multiple. Let me get down across the low here. And you could even, if you really wanted to turn this into a swing trade, try and shoot for the lows. But in this case, I'm playing the overall range, and I've got 2 targets that are inside of it, and it's going to give me more than this is more than a 3-to-1 multiple. So there's no guarantee that this is going to hold, but with that big push that we had at 9, the buyers were trying to stop the upward action here. This is where the seller re-engaged, and this really looks like a great place to try and find a short, not because it's going to turn into a grand short, but because the amount that I have to risk is so little that I can afford to put on the trade and still find a target inside this small range. So for most people that are trading inside of a, I don't know, whatever this is, 30, 40 tick range, it can be very frustrating trying to find a trade unless you get filled right at the edge. And in this case, we're going to take a shot that we can actually get a couple of targets inside the range, and I think that's just waiting for the right opportunity to come. Okay, let's see if the sellers can follow through here. Pushing down to 97. Okay, so there's the 2-to-1, and as I said, it's inside the range that everybody else has been struggling with this morning. So really nice to see a 2-to-1 return on a trade, and then now we've got such a little bit of risk. We're only risking 4 ticks on the remaining, and the hope is that we can break the range. And even if all we do is trade down into the 6 a.m. lows, we still have an opportunity to pick up another target, risk being reduced, and then of course, if we can break the range, we've got some targets down below, and notably 66. I think you could even make a case to trade it further than that, but for the time being, we'll just keep it simple and look at the key transition for the 2 a.m. move. Okay, here comes the seller trying to drive across. Going to go ahead and bring our stop in a little bit. Okay, so now we're starting to break that range, and we want to get an idea of where this next target is. You can see it down below, and we're going to start jumping the stop down a little bit. The reason we have this target is this was a break across from this morning, but rather than get overly focused on that, I want to make sure that we're managing everything else very well. So here is the volume distribution on the way down. There's no reason for us to have our stop this deep back. We want to at least get to the edge of the volume distribution, and really this is where the seller came in and drove through. So we can even protect a little bit more just by kind of using the guidance of where the prior volume activity was. So either way, you can either track with the edge of value, or you can track just basically visually what you see, right? And so here's the breakdown across through and then the pullback, and we wouldn't expect it to trade much further than this, right? Because this is the volume here and the volume here that we were using for our targets. And so at this point, what you want. I tell you what, I'm going to spread the chart out just a little bit so that we can see our target. And we can kind of track the whole thing. So here's the seller comes in, drives down to the edge of the volume, lifts back up, the seller comes back in, and this is the transition here. And then we push down, another strong push by the seller here. So I think we can continue to drop the stop down now at 98. And with any luck, any drive back up, we should see, I'm just going to put a little profile here, see where the bulk, okay, so most of the volume's up there. All right, so we either should be on the edge here or on the edge here. And I think in the interest of not giving up any extra profit, we want to drop it as close as we can. So you can see the volume nodes here. You've got this push, which is the seller breaking this time. You've got this push, which is the seller breaking through this piece of volume. Now we're consolidating down here, and the question is, can we keep this? Can we keep this going? And so 66 being, let's just suck this in a little bit and see if we can. So yesterday, this is the closing volume here. Friday's closing volume here. We traded lower this morning. This was the breakout through that. That's why we're using this as the target. And we'll once the trade is done, we'll kind of walk through step by step. So point of control shift down here. So there's more volume here than at any other single price. Good volume node. So any breakaway from here, we want to use this as our stop guidance. It's just a good way to jump it up another 8 ticks. So just looking for a little bit of an expansion here. There we go. Starting to dip down. So we're going to jump this stop. And I'll just clean this up so that we're not overwhelmed with too much stuff. So you can see the volume node here, right? And so rather than allow this to continue to come back the other direction, we're going to play right there. This is also a standard deviation of the volume from the move down. So we'll see if this will continue to break and try and get down to the 66. Okay, well, the buyers poked their head back up and took us out of the position. And all in all, I think that was a great little trade. We got more than the range out of it, or at least the range out of it. And it might very well dip over and continue pushing down. Let's take a look at the trade as a whole, right? Let's think about why this was such a good opportunity. The key for me here was that all morning we were in this range. So this range started, I guess, technically back about 545, and we were making these transitions. Once we had volume come into the market, every turn was relatively sharp. In other words, you can see that we had a typical 3-step turn where the market's driving up, they press back down, the market makes one more shot to drive up, and then turns. Same thing happens on the lows. Then at the high, market presses up, there's a fade back down, then there's one more jab up, and then there's a sharp turn. Same thing down here, there's a push lower, one more shot to go, market pulls back up a little bit, then drops back down trying to go, and the third step is the swing all the way to the top. It's not until we get up here at 9 o'clock where we see the market really consolidate. We see a push up and then a move down, and a push up and a move down, and another push up and a move down. And then we finally hit the stress point where we break down, but then we start the same thing again. This is indicative of a more powerful turn in the market where you're likely to see a range break, right? The buyers were doing an awful lot of effort to get out of here, and the sellers just flat out held it up and just stopped the upward action. And to eventually see the seller be able to break that over and transition indicates that this is going to be a very strong move. Now, when we look at that and we say, okay, well, a very strong move, that's great. I mean, we want to see a move that will break a range. But in reality, all we've done so far this morning is trade this range. So we want to make sure that we can get into a trade where we can at least double our money, make 2 to 1 on whatever we have to risk, still inside that range. And so to see this come together where the CWAP and the volume weighted average price were so perfectly lined up with what was happening in that whole volume transition. So we have the push off the high, then we have the consolidation here, and then we finally have the seller come in and follow through and break down across. The fact that our stop could hold on the other side of this last volume transition made it very easy. It was a nice small stop opportunity where we were able to get not just one, but two targets inside the range. And then, of course, we were shooting for, and I'm just going to pull across so you guys can actually see this. Early this morning when London broke out of this low and traded up and cleared some of the prior highs, where did we trade up to? We traded back up to the open. And there was a lot of consolidation here from about 10 after 2 to about 225, where the market was consolidating, and then finally we had this big snap out that created really this big swing up that we saw in the overnight, or in the London session at least. So anyway, I still think it was a great trade. It's a great lesson for you guys when you're trying to trade a range and you can't get just the edges, because obviously if you're going to range trade, the best thing that you can do is play against the edge. But this morning we had too many edges in too many different places. So it was impossible to just put on an order at the edge. But to find this where we're going from sharp transition to now big, nice, rounded, multi-stage transition, that's generally where you're going to find your trade. And the trick is finding one that has a small enough risk and a real target where you can still make at least 2 to 1. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, Mark and I are going to do some recording around lunchtime and just talk through some of the new stuff in NT8 and some of the other things that we have going on. So we should have some good content for you tomorrow, assuming I can get it all edited by the end of the day. I'll get it posted. Hope everybody's doing well. Take care.